The very short version of this short video is that any truly thoughtful human will almost certainly recognize a thoughtful life as one replete with suffering. However, such a life is better than the approach taken by far too many people, which lacks thoughtfulness. A few details follow, based primarily on the work of Alexander Atkins, educator and author in Silicon Valley. Friedrich Nietzsche is often misquoted for the famous expression, quote, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find meaning in the suffering," end quote. Nietzsche is considered one of the most influential philosophers in history. He did write about suffering, and in his 1887 book, The Genealogy of Morals, he wrote something pretty close to the famous line, quote, "Man, the bravest animal and most prone to suffer, does not deny suffering as such. He wills it, he even seeks it out, provided he is shown a meaning for it, a purpose of suffering," end quote. In addition to being incorrectly attributed to Nietzsche, the phrase is also mistakenly attributed to Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist who founded logotherapy. He never wrote the statement, although he certainly would have agreed with it. The quotation is found in Frankl's profoundly insightful and best-selling 1946 book, Man's Search for Meaning. However, the quote is found only in the preface, which was written by Gordon Allport, professor of psychology at Harvard University and former editor of the peer-reviewed Journal of Abnormal and Social Psychology. Allport was instrumental in introducing Frankl's logotherapy to a wider audience through his work at Harvard and also as editor of the peer-reviewed journal. In the preface of Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, Allport paraphrases Frankl in writing, quote, "But these moments of comfort do not establish the will to live unless they help the prisoner make larger sense out of his apparently senseless suffering. It is here that we encounter the central theme of existentialism. To live is to suffer, to survive is to find meaning in the suffering. If there is a purpose in life at all, there must be a purpose in suffering and in dying. But no man can tell another what this purpose is. Each man must find out for himself and must accept the responsibility that his answer prescribes. If he succeeds, he will continue to grow in spite of all indignities." Frankl is fond of quoting Nietzsche, quote, "He who has a why to live can bear with almost any how," end quote. I'll reread the second sentence of Allport's preface. Quote, "It is here that we encounter the central theme of existentialism. To live is to suffer, to survive is to find meaning in the suffering," end quote. In other words, it was Allport who wrote this famous line about finding meaning in suffering, not Nietzsche and not Frankl. Perhaps the first person to write about the topic of suffering was Plato, quoting Socrates. Quote, "If you don't get what you want, you suffer. If you get what you don't want, you suffer. Even when you get exactly what you want, you still suffer because you can't hold on to it forever. Your mind is your predicament. It wants to be free of change, free of pain, free of the obligations of life and death. But change is law, and no amount of pretending will alter that reality," end quote. In other words, Socrates basically said that to live is to suffer. Whereas this is almost universally true, the two obvious alternatives seem even more unbearable, at least to me. First, I'm a fan of living as opposed to not living. And second, I prefer a thoughtful life over a thoughtless life. As a result, suffering is almost certain to be included.